The moment Hyunjin raised his hand, Felix realized he was looking at someone he no longer recognized. "Come any closer," stopped so abruptly that his shoes scraped against the polished studio floor. Hyunjin stood beneath the flickering ceiling light, breathing hard, his black shirt damp with rain and his dark hair plastered against his forehead. There was a thin cut across his cheek, and a drop of blood slowly traveled toward his jaw, but it wasn't the blood that frightened Felix. It was Hyunjin's eyes. They were cold, not tired, not angry, cold. "Hyunjin," Felix whispered. The person standing in front of him stared back without answering. Felix took one cautious step forward. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "I didn't ask you to." The words struck harder than Felix expected. Hyunjin had always been the person who softened his voice when Felix was nervous. He remembered how Hyunjin used to knock twice on his bedroom door before entering, how he always stole the last strawberry from Felix's dessert and pretended he hadn't, how he hummed quietly whenever he was anxious. This Hyunjin did none of those things. He simply stared. Felix swallowed. "What happened to you?" A faint smile appeared on Hyunjin's lips. "Maybe you never knew me as well as you thought." Thunder shook the windows. Felix's fingers tightened around the phone in his hand. 3 hours earlier, Hyunjin had disappeared. No explanation, no message, no answer to dozens of calls. Felix had searched the dorm, the practice rooms, the parking garage, even the empty streets surrounding the building. Then he had received a single message from an unknown number. Come alone, he had known immediately that something was wrong. Now, standing in the dark studio, he wished he had ignored it. "Who sent me the message?" Felix asked. Hyunjin looked away. "I did." "You don't even text like that. People change, not overnight." Hyunjin's jaw tightened for a moment. Something familiar flickered behind his expression, fear, then it vanished. "Go home, Felix." "No, I'm serious." "So am I." Felix stepped closer. "You disappeared without telling anyone. You came back injured. You're acting like I'm a stranger and you're expecting me to just walk away." Hyunjin's eyes hardened. "You should. I'm dangerous." Filled the studio. Felix stared at him. Then he noticed something on the floor, a small silver key. Hyunjin followed his gaze and immediately moved to pick it up. Felix reached it first. "What is this?" "Give it back." Closed his fingers around it. "Why?" "Because you don't know what it opens." "Then tell me." Hyunjin didn't answer. Felix looked at the key again. There was a tiny number engraved into the metal, 17. His stomach tightened. "Hyunjin, give me the key." Slowly shook his head. "No." Hyunjin's expression changed. First time Felix saw genuine panic. "Felix," he whispered, "please." That single word sounded like the Hyunjin he knew, the frightened one, the exhausted one, his best friend. Felix lowered the key. "What are you hiding?" Hyunjin closed his eyes. "I found something." Room. Waited. "Someone has been keeping records about us." The rain outside became louder. "What kind of records?" Hyunjin opened his eyes. Felt the cold spread through his chest. "What do you mean?" "Where we go. Who we meet, what we say when we leave the building." He paused. "Things only we should know." Stared at him. "Who? I don't know." "Then why are you acting like this?" Hyunjin looked toward the dark window. "Because yesterday I found a file with your name on it." Felix's breathing stopped. "Name?" Hyunjin nodded. "And underneath your name was mine." Studio suddenly felt too small. Felix looked at his friend, trying to understand the distance between the person he remembered and the person standing before him. "What did it say?" Hyunjin's lips parted. Before he could answer, the lights went out. Felix heard something move behind them. He turned. Nothing. Then Hyunjin grabbed his wrist. "Run." They sprinted through the emergency exit as footsteps echoed somewhere behind them. The rain hit Felix's face the moment they burst outside. "Where are we going?" Felix shouted. "Anywhere they can't find us." "Who are they?" Hyunjin didn't answer. They crossed the street and disappeared into an alley. Only when they reached an abandoned parking structure did Hyunjin finally stop. Felix leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. "You can't keep doing this." Hyunjin looked at him. "Doing what?" "Running, lying, pretending you're someone else." Hyunjin's face tightened. "You think I'm pretending? I think you're scared." The words silenced him. Felix stepped closer. "You've been scared since yesterday. You're just hiding it behind anger." Hyunjin looked down. His fingers trembled barely, but Felix noticed. He always noticed. "You're still my Hyunjin," Felix whispered. Hyunjin shook his head. "No." Felix's heart sank. "You're wrong." Hyunjin reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded photograph. He handed it to Felix. Felix unfolded it. His face went pale. It showed Felix and Hyunjin standing outside an old building. They were looking at each other. The photograph was dated yesterday, but neither of them remembered being there. On the back, someone had written 4 words, "You don't know him." Felix looked up. Hyunjin was watching him. "That's why I changed," he said quietly. "Changed into what?" "Someone who might survive." Several seconds neither spoke. Then Felix folded the photograph and placed it carefully in his pocket. "If you're afraid of becoming someone I don't recognize," he said, "then I'll stay until I recognize you again." Hyunjin stared at him. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand." Something broke inside Hyunjin's expression. His shoulders lowered, his eyes became wet. "I was trying to protect you." stepped forward and pulled him into a hug. Hyunjin froze. For a moment he didn't move, then his hands slowly closed around Felix's back, his breathing shook. "I thought you were going to leave me," Hyunjin whispered. Felix held him tighter. "I'm not going anywhere." Neither of them noticed the small red light blinking from the rooftop across the street. Someone was watching. Someone who had been waiting for Hyunjin to finally trust Felix again. The next morning Hyunjin woke before sunrise. The room was quiet. Felix was asleep on the couch beside him. For the first time in days, Hyunjin felt almost safe. Then his phone vibrated. One message: "You chose him again." Hyunjin's blood ran cold. Another message appeared. "Now we know what will break you." He looked at Felix. The fear returned, not for himself, for his best friend. Hyunjin quietly stood, walked to the window and stared into the pale morning. Behind him, Felix opened his eyes. Hyunjin turned. For one brief second, his expression was exactly as Felix remembered. Then he smiled. "I'm here," smiled back. But neither of them knew that the mystery surrounding Hyunjin had never truly been about who he had become. It was about who had been watching them all along. And as sunlight slowly entered the room, Felix finally understood the most frightening truth of all. The person Hyunjin had been afraid of was not outside. It was someone they both already knew. Felix knew something was wrong the moment Hyunjin stopped humming. It was such a small thing that nobody else would have noticed. Hyunjin always hummed when he was nervous. He hummed while tying his shoelaces, while waiting for coffee, while staring at his phone, and especially when he was trying to hide something. But that morning he was completely silent. Felix watched him from the kitchen doorway. Hyunjin stood beside the window, staring at the street below. His phone was still in his hand. "You didn't sleep," Felix said. Hyunjin didn't turn around. "I slept." "No, you didn't." A pause. "You've been watching that window for 20 minutes. Hyunjin finally looked back. His expression was calm, too calm. "You're becoming observant. I learned from you." A faint smile appeared, then disappeared. Felix walked toward him. What did the message say? Nothing important. "Hyunjin." Their eyes met, neither moved. Finally, Hyunjin placed the phone face down on the table. "It's over." Frowned. "What is the problem? You don't believe that?" "I do." "You're lying." Hyunjin looked away. Felix sighed. "Yesterday you told me someone was following us. You showed me a photograph neither of us remembered taking. You said there was a room full of records about us. And now you're telling me everything is fine." "Yes, that doesn't make sense." "I know. Then why are you doing it?" Hyunjin's jaw tightened. "Because I don't want you involved anymore." Stared at him. "You already involved me. I can fix it." "You can't. I have to." Sharpness in Hyunjin's voice made Felix stop. For a moment Hyunjin looked exhausted, not angry, terrified. Felix softened. "You don't have to do this alone." Hyunjin looked at him. "I already am." "No," stepped closer. "You're not." Hyunjin's eyes became glassy, but he quickly turned away. "I need to go somewhere." "Where? Don't follow me." Immediately understood. "That means I should definitely follow you." "You know me." "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Hyunjin grabbed his jacket. Felix watched him leave. 5 minutes later, Felix followed. The city was still wet from the night's rain. Cars moved through the streets, tires hissing against the pavement. Hyunjin walked quickly, constantly checking reflections in shop windows. He wasn't going to the studio, he wasn't going home. He was heading toward an old subway entrance several blocks away. Felix kept his distance. When Hyunjin disappeared down the stairs, Felix waited before following. The station was almost empty. A train passed without stopping. The tunnel filled with wind. Felix spotted Hyunjin at the far end of the platform. He was standing in front of a locked maintenance door. Then someone approached him. A man in a grey coat. Felix couldn't see his face. Hyunjin said something. The man handed him a small envelope. Hyunjin opened it. His expression changed instantly. Felix moved closer. The man suddenly looked toward him. Their eyes met. Felix froze. The man's face was familiar, not because Felix knew him personally. Because he had seen him before in the photograph, the same grey coat, the same narrow scar beneath his left eye. Felix stepped backward. The man disappeared into the crowd. Hyunjin spun around, his face drained of colour. "What are you doing here? Who was that? Go." "Who was he?" "Felix, go now. You know him." Hyunjin grabbed Felix's arm. "He isn't the person you should be afraid of." "Then who should I be afraid of?" Hyunjin stared at him. "You," blinked. "What?" Hyunjin released him. "You're the reason they're watching." The train arrived, its doors opened. Hyunjin stepped inside. Felix followed. "What does that mean?" Hyunjin remained silent. The train began moving. The windows reflected their faces in the darkness. Then Hyunjin finally spoke. "You asked why I changed." Nodded. "I didn't change because I wanted to." "Then why?" "Because the person you knew was too trusting." Looked at him. Hyunjin continued. "I believed everyone around us was honest." Voice became quieter. "I believed our lives were ordinary." Looked at Felix. "They aren't." Train entered a tunnel. The lights flickered. Felix noticed something reflected in the window, a figure standing behind them. He turned. Nobody was there. When he looked back at the glass, the reflection was gone. Hyunjin was behind us. Hyunjin immediately stood. "Get off at the next station." Why, just do it. Train slowed, the doors opened. Hyunjin pulled Felix onto the platform. They walked quickly through the station, neither spoke. Then Felix noticed the envelope in Hyunjin's hand. What was inside? Hyunjin stopped, he slowly opened it. There was a single photograph. Felix stared at it. It showed Hyunjin sitting alone in a hospital room. He looked younger, afraid, and beside him was a person whose face had been deliberately scratched away. Felix looked at Hyunjin. When was this taken? Hyunjin's face became pale. I don't know. You were in a hospital. Yes. Don't remember. Looked at the photograph again. There was something written at the bottom. Room 17. Felix remembered the silver key, the same number. His stomach tightened. That's what the key opens. Hyunjin nodded. But there's something you don't know. Stared at the photograph. The room wasn't a hospital room. Waited. It was a recording room. Silence. What was recorded? Hyunjin swallowed. Conversations. Felt a chill move through him. Why? I don't know. Then let's find out. Hyunjin looked at him. No. I remember the last recording. Felix's voice softened. What happened? Hyunjin's eyes filled with fear. You were there. Went still. I was. Hyunjin nodded. And you were crying. Why? I don't know. Then let's find the room. Hyunjin shook his head. You don't understand, Felix. What? The recording ended with you saying one sentence. Stared at him. What sentence? Hyunjin looked directly into his eyes. You told me not to trust you. Words echoed in Felix's mind. He wanted to laugh. He wanted to reject them. But something deep inside him reacted differently. A strange memory surfaced, a white room, a cold metal chair, Hyunjin's voice and his own trembling hands. Felix touched his temple. I've seen it. Hyunjin immediately stepped closer. What? The room. Do you remember? Felix closed his eyes. The memory became clearer. A red light, a microphone, a camera, Hyunjin sitting across from him. And a voice coming from somewhere behind the glass. Felix opened his eyes. Someone was asking me questions. Hyunjin stared at him. What questions? Felix struggled to remember. About you. Hyunjin's face changed. What did you say? Felix looked terrified. I don't know. A sound echoed through the station, 3 slow knocks. Hyunjin turned toward the maintenance corridor. Knock, knock, knock. Felix's breathing stopped. The same rhythm, the same sound he remembered from the white room. Hyunjin grabbed his hand. Don't look back. They walked away. Neither of them noticed the camera mounted above the corridor. Its red light turned on. Someone was watching them again. But this time the screen wasn't showing Hyunjin, it was showing Felix. And beneath the image a name appeared, Subject 2. Hyunjin's phone vibrated. He looked at the message. The memory is returning. Then another message appeared, and when he remembers everything he will remember what you did. Hyunjin slowly lowered the phone. Felix noticed his expression. What happened? Hyunjin looked at his best friend. For the first time he seemed more afraid of Felix's memories than the person chasing them. Nothing. Stared at him. You're lying again. Hyunjin didn't answer. Outside the station the rain began falling again, and somewhere beneath the city an old recording started playing. A younger Felix's voice filled the darkness. I don't trust Hyunjin. Then another voice answered. You will. The recording continued. Eventually he will believe the lie too.
I don't trust Hyunjin. The recording stopped. Felix remained completely still. The voice coming from the hidden speaker had been his, not similar, not distorted. His, he could hear the same slight tremble at the end of each sentence, the same habit of swallowing before difficult words. Hyunjin stared at the darkness beyond the maintenance corridor. Where did you hear that? Felix's voice was barely audible. On the recording. I know. You knew. Hyunjin didn't answer. Felix stepped backward. You've heard this before. Yes. Many times. Hyunjin looked at him. Enough to hate myself for remembering it. His expression hardened. What did I do? You didn't do anything. Isn't true. You were scared. Then why don't I remember? Because someone made sure you wouldn't. The words settled between them. Felix looked around the empty station. Who? Hyunjin reached for his phone. Before he could unlock it, every light in the station went out. The darkness swallowed them. Felix heard Hyunjin's breathing change. Stay beside me. I am. Don't move. Something scraped against the floor slowly, metal against concrete. Felix instinctively reached for Hyunjin's hand. Hyunjin squeezed it, then a voice came from the darkness. Hyunjin. Froze. It sounded exactly like him, the same voice, the same tone. But Hyunjin pulled Felix behind him. Don't answer. The voice came again. Hyunjin. This time it sounded frightened. Felix whispered, That's my voice. I know. A third time. Hyunjin, please. Sound came from somewhere behind them. Felix turned. A dim emergency light suddenly flickered on. The platform was empty, but on the floor lay a small audio recorder. Hyunjin approached it carefully. Touch it. Stared at the device. Why? Because they want us to. Hyunjin took a step back, then the recorder activated by itself. Felix's voice filled the station. If you're hearing this, you've already forgotten. Felix's blood ran cold. The recording continued. You will think Hyunjin changed. Hyunjin looked at Felix. You will think he's hiding something from you. Couldn't breathe. You will be wrong. The recording crackled. The person you need to fear isn't Hyunjin. Then Felix heard his own voice whisper, "It's me." The recorder clicked off. Felix stared at Hyunjin. Neither spoke. Finally, Hyunjin said, "We have to leave." Didn't move. You knew. I suspected. You suspected I was the problem. I suspected someone wanted you to believe that. The recording could have been manipulated. My voice, your voice can be copied. Shook his head. No, Felix. No, he backed away. I remember something. Hyunjin stopped. What? Felix pressed his palms against his temples. A door. His breathing became uneven. A white door. Hyunjin stepped closer. What else? You were standing outside it. I alone? No. Closed his eyes. Someone else was there. A woman, long dark hair, a silver ring. She was speaking to Hyunjin. Felix could almost hear her, tell him nothing. Opened his eyes. There was a woman. Hyunjin's face changed. Don't know. What did she look like? Dark hair, silver ring. Hyunjin went silent. Felix noticed. You know her. Hyunjin looked away. Hyunjin, I thought she was dead. The words made Felix's stomach tighten. Who is she? My sister. Stared at him. You never told me you had a sister. I don't. What? She died when I was 16. Felix's expression softened. I'm sorry. Hyunjin shook his head. That's not what scares me. What does? The woman in your memory is wearing the same ring. Slowly pulled a photograph from his pocket. Felix looked at it. A young woman stood beside Hyunjin. She was smiling. On her right hand was a silver ring. Felix felt dizzy. That's her. Hyunjin nodded. She disappeared 12 years ago. Then how was she in the recording? I don't know. A sudden sound echoed through the corridor. Footsteps. Hyunjin grabbed Felix's wrist. They ran. The footsteps followed. Fast. Felix's shoes slipped against the wet concrete as they raced through the maintenance passage. Left. Hyunjin pointed. They turned. A metal door appeared ahead. Hyunjin pulled it open. They stumbled into a narrow storage room. He locked the door. The footsteps stopped outside. Felix held his breath. Nothing. Then 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Felix looked at Hyunjin. The same rhythm. Hyunjin placed a finger against his lips. They waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, the footsteps disappeared. Felix exhaled. Whoever that was knew the rhythm. Hyunjin nodded. It's a signal. For what? A test. Felix frowned. What kind of test? To see if we remember. Stared at him. You've been dealing with this for how long? 3 days. 3 days. Yes. You became completely different in 3 days. Hyunjin looked down. I was trying to make you hate me. Felix's eyes widened. If you hated me, you would stay away. You could have just told me. They were watching you. So I needed them to believe you didn't matter to me. Felix's expression broke. You made me think I'd lost my best friend. I know. You ignored me. I know. You said things you knew would hurt me. I know. Felix's voice cracked. And you expected me to forgive you. Hyunjin looked at him. Answer was quiet. I only wanted you alive. Stared at him. The anger remained, but beneath it was something else. Pain. He stepped closer. You don't get to decide whether I stay. Hyunjin's eyes filled with tears. I was afraid. So was I. I didn't know what else to do. The next time, trust me. Hyunjin laughed bitterly. I tried. Felix frowned. What does that mean? Hyunjin looked toward the locked door. You don't remember what happened before the recordings. What happened? We trusted each other. Waited. Then one night you told me something. What? That someone had offered you money to betray me. Felix's face went pale. I would never. I know. Then why did you believe it? I didn't. Hyunjin's voice dropped. Until I saw the proof. Stared at him. What proof? A video. Of what? Of you. The room became silent. You were meeting someone. Who? Hyunjin shook his head. I never saw their face. Felix's mind raced. Where was I? In room 17. Felix felt the blood drain from his face. What were we doing? You were giving them something. What? Hyunjin hesitated. An envelope. Remembered. The silver key, the photograph, the white room, the voice, everything seemed connected. He looked at Hyunjin. I think I know where room 17 is. Hyunjin stared at him. The old building. Hyunjin's expression changed. No, I saw it in my memory. No, Felix, I saw a staircase. You couldn't have. The staircase was sealed 12 years ago. Slowly looked at him. 12 years ago. Hyunjin nodded. The same year my sister disappeared. A silence followed. Then Felix noticed something beneath the storage room door. A thin piece of paper had been pushed underneath. Hyunjin picked it up. His hands trembled. There was only one sentence. You're both RMENBRNG too much. Hyunjin turned the paper over. A photograph was attached. Felix and Hyunjin stood in front of the old building. But this photograph was different. They were not alone. A woman stood behind them, long dark hair, silver ring. Hyunjin stopped breathing. Felix stared at the photograph. That can't be. Hyunjin whispered her name. Yuna, woman in the photograph, was smiling. And beneath the photograph was a date. Tomorrow. Felix looked at Hyunjin. She isn't dead. Hyunjin didn't respond. For the first time since Felix had known him, Hyunjin looked completely lost. Then his phone vibrated. One new message appeared. Come to room 17, bring Felix. Hyunjin stared at the screen. A second message appeared, and this time, don't lie to him about what happened that night. Hyunjin deleted the message without saying a word, but Felix had already seen it. Room 17. Hyunjin looked up. Felix's expression was calm, yet his eyes had changed. You're going. No, you're lying. I said no. Then why did you delete the message? Hyunjin slipped his phone into his pocket. Whoever sent it wants us there. Stepped closer. And I don't trust them. You don't trust anyone. That's the point. Stared at him for several seconds, then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the silver key. I think this disagrees with you. Hyunjin's face tightened. Where did you get that? You gave it to me yesterday. I told you to get rid of it. I didn't. You said it opened something. Hyunjin looked at the key. It opens room 17. Then we're going. No, Felix's voice became firmer. Hyunjin, we're already inside this. You don't understand what room 17 is. Then explain. Hyunjin turned away. It was where everything started. The recordings. Waited. Hyunjin finally spoke. 12 years ago, my sister disappeared. Stared at the dark corridor. She was the last person to enter room 17. And you, I followed her. Felix's eyes widened. You were there. Yes. Happened. I don't remember. You don't remember. I was 16. Hyunjin's fingers curled into fists. I remember walking down the stairs. I remember hearing her voice. Then I remember waking up in a hospital. Whispered, and your sister, gone. They say what happened. They said there had been an accident. Never told me. Looked at him. That's why you've been searching. Hyunjin nodded. For 12 years. The words explained something Felix had never understood, the locked notebooks, the sleepless nights. The way Hyunjin always became tense whenever someone mentioned old buildings. His obsession with remembering small details, the habit of writing everything down. Felix had once thought it was just Hyunjin being meticulous. Now he understood. Hyunjin wasn't trying to remember his past. He was trying to prove it existed. Why didn't you tell me? Felix asked. Because I didn't want your life connected to mine. Too late. I know. They left the station before dawn. The old building stood at the edge of the city, surrounded by abandoned warehouses and rusted fences. Rainwater dripped from broken gutters. The air smelled of wet concrete and rust. Felix stared at the building. I've been here before. Hyunjin looked at him. When? I don't know. They entered through a broken side door. Their footsteps echoed through the empty hallway. Dust covered the floor. Old posters hung from the walls. Some had been torn apart. Others were covered with faded photographs. Hyunjin stopped. Felix nearly walked into him. What? Hyunjin pointed. A photograph had been pinned to the wall. It showed a group of teenagers. Hyunjin was among them. Felix stared. You were here? Yes. Years ago. Pointed at the corner. There. A younger Felix stood beside Hyunjin. Hyunjin's face went pale. I wasn't supposed to know you yet. Looked at him. What? We met later. Then why am I in the photograph? Hyunjin didn't answer. Felix stepped closer. There was something written beneath the picture. Session 2. Felix felt his stomach tighten. Session 2. Hyunjin nodded. We need to find Session 1. They searched the hallway behind an old cabinet. Felix discovered a small metal box. Inside were cassette tapes, dozens of them. Each one had a name. Hyunjin, Felix, again and again. Felix's fingers trembled. Someone recorded us. Hyunjin picked up one tape. This one is dated 12 years ago. Looked at Felix. You weren't supposed to be there. Play it. Hyunjin hesitated, then he inserted the tape into an old recorder. Static filled the room. A man's voice appeared. One is responding normally. A younger Hyunjin's voice followed. Where is my sister? The man answered calmly. You don't have a sister. Hyunjin closed his eyes. Felix stared at him. The recording continued. She never existed. Hyunjin screamed. That's a lie. The tape crackled. Then another voice appeared. Felix's, much younger. She told me to forget. Hyunjin opened his eyes. Felix stopped breathing. The recording continued. The younger Felix was crying. She said Hyunjin can't know. Hyunjin stared at Felix. What did she tell you? Felix shook his head. I don't remember. The voice continued. If I tell him, they'll hurt him. Hyunjin's hands began shaking. Felix, I don't remember. The recording suddenly stopped. A door slammed somewhere upstairs. Both of them looked up. Someone was walking slowly down the stairs. Hyunjin grabbed the recorder. Come on. They moved deeper into the building. The footsteps followed. Felix whispered, Who is that? I don't know. You're sure? Yes. They entered a narrow corridor. At the end was a metal door. A number was painted across it, 17. Felix held up the key. Hyunjin stared at the door. Neither moved. Then Felix inserted the key. Click. The lock opened. Cold air rushed out. The room smelled of dust, chemicals, and something metallic. Felix stepped inside. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them. Some showed Hyunjin, some showed Felix, others showed both of them together. But the oldest photographs were impossible. They showed Felix and Hyunjin as children, standing together, laughing, holding hands. Felix stared at them. That can't be real. Hyunjin looked like he was going to collapse. We didn't meet until years later. A voice came from behind them. Yes. They turned. A woman stood in the doorway, long dark hair, silver ring. Hyunjin's breath stopped. Yuna, she smiled. Hello, little brother. Stared at her. You're alive. Yuna's smile faded, barely. Hyunjin took one step toward her. You were dead. I needed you to believe that. Why? Because they were watching. Who? Yuna looked at Felix. Her expression became complicated. You still haven't told him. Hyunjin's face tightened. Told me what? Felix asked. Yuna sighed. The truth. Looked at Hyunjin. What truth? Yuna walked into the room. The two of you didn't meet by accident. Felt his chest tighten. What do you mean? You were brought together. Whom? The people who built this place. Hyunjin whispered. Why? Yuna looked at him. To study what happens when two people are made to depend on each other. Stared at her. You're saying our friendship was an experiment? Yuna nodded. It went wrong. How? Because you became real. Silence. Yuna continued. They expected fear. They expected betrayal. They expected one of you to eventually turn against the other. She looked at Felix. Instead, you protected him. Then she looked at Hyunjin. And he protected you. Hyunjin's eyes filled with tears. They erased us. Yuna nodded, again and again. Felt dizzy. What do you mean, again and again? Yuna pointed toward the wall. At the center was a photograph. Felix and Hyunjin stood beside each other. The date was 12 years ago, then another 10 years ago, another 8 years ago, another 6 years ago. Felix stared in horror. We've done this before. Yuna whispered many times. Hyunjin stepped backward. You always forget. No. And every time you remember, they reset you. Looked at the photographs. His hands trembled. That explains the dreams. Hyunjin looked at him. What dreams? The ones where I lose you. Yuna's expression darkened. Aren't dreams. Turned toward her. They're memories. A low mechanical sound filled the room. The lights switched on. A monitor appeared behind the photographs. A video began playing. Felix and Hyunjin were sitting in 2 chairs. They looked older, exhausted. A voice asked them a question. Who do you trust? Felix answered. Hyunjin. Hyunjin answered. Felix. The screen changed. The same room, another year, another version of them. Who do you trust? Hyunjin. Again. Felix covered his mouth. Many times. Yuna looked at him. 23. Hyunjin's knees nearly gave way. 23 lives, 23 friendships, 23 times forgetting. Then the final recording began. The image showed Felix and Hyunjin in the same room, but this time Felix was crying. Hyunjin was holding his hand. A voice asked, if you could save only one of you, who would you choose? Neither answered. The voice repeated the question. Felix looked at Hyunjin, then he whispered, him. Hyunjin stared at the screen. The recording continued. Hyunjin shook his head. No, smiled sadly. I already decided. The screen went black. Yuna looked at them. That was the night everything changed. Turned toward her. What did I do? Yuna's eyes filled with sadness. You broke the experiment. How? You remembered. Stared at her. And what happened after that? Yuna looked toward Hyunjin. He asked them to erase his memories instead of yours. Turned slowly. Hyunjin couldn't look at him. You did that. Hyunjin nodded. Why? Because you were the only person who remembered everything. Felix's eyes filled with tears. You forgot me. I thought forgetting would keep you safe. You forgot everything we were. I know. You still changed. Hyunjin looked at him. I changed because every time I looked at you, something inside me remembered. Stepped closer. Then why did you keep pretending you didn't know me? Because I was afraid that if I remembered too much, they would take you again. Yuna suddenly looked toward the doorway. Her expression changed. They're here. Hyunjin turned. What? Yuna grabbed Felix's arm. There's no time. A loud metallic sound echoed from the corridor, then another. Footsteps approached. Yuna pushed a small device into Felix's hand. Whatever happens, don't let them separate you. Looked at the device. What is this? The memory key. Hyunjin stared at it. Yuna, she looked at him. I couldn't save you 12 years ago. Her voice trembled. Don't make me watch it happen again. The lights went out. The door began to open. Felix reached for Hyunjin. Their fingers locked together. And for the first time, neither of them tried to let go.